Good morning. It is December 30th, 2016, and this is Friday. And this is Ron. Welcome to Story Time. And I'm coming to you on location at Lovebirds on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. So the selection for today is an article from the July 2016 issue of the Rake magazine. It's called Slave to Love by Stuart Husband. He could play the guitar like Hendrix, dance like James Brown, and get everyone off like, well, Prince. He was an exclusive universe reserved for those artists for whom genius is the only useful label. And even as he was universally adored, he managed to remain unknowable. The Rake pays tribute to the late Prince Rogers Nelson. It started as so many of the best things do, with a Ford Thunderbird. The purple car rose up out of the floor at Wembley Arena and circled the in-the-round stage to a martial drumbeat. Then the door flew open and Prince stepped out dressed for harlequinade in a white polka dot suit with absurdly oversized buttons. Upstage, Cat, the formidably toned rapper and Prince's latest protege, and Sheila E., his powerhouse drummer, were marching in lockstep, dressed for a burlesque rodeo in sports bras and Stetsons. Prince joined them for a frenetic routine that seemed to sprint through most of the major Kama Sutra positions in around 2 minutes. Finally, he approached the microphone and, pausing only for a trademark lascivious lip lick, drawled the opening lines of Erotic City. All my purple life, I've been looking for a dame. If the dames and the dudes weren't already feeling decidedly post-coital at this point, they were certainly ready for a whole pack of Marlboro Lights by the time the chorus kicked in. We can fuck until the dawn, make love till cherry's gone. Erotic City, can't you see? Fuck so pretty, you and me. This was merely the first 5 or so minutes of Prince's Love Sexy tour in 1988, and already I was experiencing severe cognitive dissonance. My simultaneous thoughts being, 1, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen, and 2, I'm already spent. But there were still 31 songs to come, from the licentious Jack You Off and the funked-up Alphabet Street to the joyous Let's Go Crazy and the dizzily anthemic Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, Kiss, and 1999. By the time the whole thing juddered to a close a couple of hours later, with Prince leaping back into his car, leaving hysteria and ardent sobbing in his wake, my mind, somewhat inundated with endorphins, managed to fasten onto the only suitable word for the spectacle we had just witnessed. Genius. Genius, it's a word that's been bandied about a lot since Prince's untimely death for the more than valid reason that it's the only one that will suffice. My dictionary definition reads exceptional intellectual or creative power or other natural ability, and that just about begins to cover the man's ineffable talent. The Love Sexy tour came at the end of his imperial phase, when he reeled off 5 transcendent albums: Purple Rain, Around the World in a Day, Parade, Sign of the Times, and Love Sexy in 5 years. He could play guitar like Hendrix, attack the piano like Little Richard, dance like James Brown, and rasp like David Ruffin. Yet his influences were subsumed into his own unified and inimitable style. And in an information-saturated age, he remained an enigma until the very end, perhaps mindful of the Victorian philosopher George Henry Lewes' quote, "Genius is rarely able to give any account of its own processes." What in the end do we know of those processes? We know that Prince Rogers Nelson was named after his jazz musician father, because according to the latter, I wanted him to do everything I wanted to do. We know his Minneapolis childhood was somewhat tempestuous. His parents split when he was 10, but that he was a prodigy, writing his first song at 7, signing with Warner Brothers when he was 19, and playing 27 instruments on his debut album, released a year later. We know that he crossed over with 1980's Dirty Mind, on which his priapic pixie persona was given full reign in songs like Head. We know that he found orgasm a religious experience. He asked, possibly vice versa, if the ecstatic release of songs such as The Cross or I Would Die for You, with their sensual devotional crossover, are anything to go by, This was before his late conversion to the Jehovah's Witness faith, when the inadvertent airing of the old profane lyric would apparently send him running for the door. We know that he toyed with the other, the feminine, the alien, and the raceless, both in polycurious songs such as If I Was Your Girlfriend and When You Were Mine, and also stylistically from his high heels, worn, he once said, because the women like them, rather than their utility in enhancing his 5'2" figure. To the Lady Diana frilly shirts of Purple Rain, and to an arresting combination of military cap, gold-green eyeshadow, and polka-dot halter top, as we see in my still-cherished Love Sexy tour brochure. We know that, because of his predilection for pushing all kinds of boundaries, he was possibly more appreciated in decadent old Europe than in more puritanical regions of his homeland. An appreciation of that savage reception afforded his European movie Under the Cherry Moon did nothing to dampen. We know that some of the unlikeliest stories about him, he loved popcorn so much he would wolf down 3 big buckets of it noisily and effusively during a movie screening. He was a good enough basketball player to make the varsity team at high school, an excellent ball handler and a good shooter, according to a former teammate, despite the fact that he had to reach at least a foot higher than anyone else for the hoop, were true. We know that he liked strong women, from Wendy and Lisa and Apollonia to Three Red Eye Girl, his superlative backing band on his clandestine hit-and-run tour, and was generous with his musical and spiritual patronage. We know from the slave and symbol years that he fought for complete artistic autonomy, striving to reclaim my art as the record industry went into free fall. And we know that even as the sheer weight of his output meant that his album releases were no longer events. Does anyone remember the Chocolate Invasion from 2004? Prince himself never ceased to be an electrifying presence, whether you were harvesting a treasure trove of old clips on the internet or seeing him at a big-ticket slam down. His record-breaking 21-night residency at London's O2 in 2007, for example, or at one of his countless guerrilla shows or impromptu after-parties. We know all that, but in the end, we knew very little. Prince played inscrutably like he played his guitar, drawing you in with his long, yearning notes, then toying with melody until it achieved mystic liftoff. Sure, the prosaic facts are out there. He married twice. He liked to ride a bike around Minneapolis. He probably had arthritis, but they dissolve the minute you hear the intro into Kiss or the amped-up synth chords and rolling Lindrums that herald 1999. This is Prince's real world, the world he promised you in Paisley Park. There's a clip out there that illustrates just how much of a sui generis, disruptive virtuoso Prince really was. It's from, of all things, a tribute to George Harrison at the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Tom Petty, Steve Winwood, and Jeff Lynne began a respectful version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Prince is at stage left, virtually in the shadows, until, at 3.5 minutes in, he steps forward in a pinstripe suit with a slash-to-the-navel flame-red shirt and matching trilby, and plays an extraordinary solo of kaleidoscopic flair, caressing, flaying, and palpating his guitar while backward stage diving. He's hoisted back up by a security guy. In the end, as Petty and company look on in something approaching awestruck reverence, Prince hoists the guitar over his head and drops it at his feet. His hands fall to his side, he nods, job done, and he strides nonchalantly into the wings, leaving head-shaking incredulity in his wake. Thank you, and good night. And that was the article from called Slave to Love, tribute to Prince, from the July 2016 issue of the Rake magazine. The next episode of Storytime will be on next Tuesday, January the 3rd. So until then, have a great day, and see you next week. And Happy New Year.